Hey, how's it going? This is your friendly neighborhood spider Brian. There is a washing machine running in the background, so sorry if we suddenly go into spin cycle. I just wanted to do a quick content warning for this episode of Buffy Boys. This episode of Buffy features an unusual amount of attempted sexual assault, and quite a lot of characters make light of this assault. Me and Joel thought this was pretty gross, but in this episode of the podcast, we did discuss it quite a bit. So if you're someone who would rather not just think about that for the day, then just fuck it. Skip this episode of the podcast and join us next week for the beginning of the season 2 finale. If you're still on board, then wow, this episode of Buffy is a bit of a mess. So enjoy.
Okay, welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's edition of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, feminist and literary perspective. My name is Joel, I'm one of the hosts, and with me today and every day is my faithful co-host
Brian. Hello, how are you?
Hello. And I would like to start off this week's episode by quoting from Alexander Harris in saying, "So say my nips."
I don't know what to do with that, Joel. Thanks. Great. Okay, cool. So this is Go Fish. This is season 2, episode 20 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's a mess. So it was first aired on May 5th, 1998. Mm-hmm. It was written by David Fury and Ellen Hampton, and it was directed by David Sennell. So I have a bunch of information about those guys, if you want me to, if you're okay with that. So first off, the two writers are married, or were married. Anyway, something like that. But she doesn't write anything else for Buffy. He writes loads for Buffy. David Fury is one of the big writing people, along with Marty Noxon, for Buffy as time goes on. So she does, however, appear as a guest star in the episode Gone, which is the episode in season 6 with Buffy being invisible.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So
as an actor,
as an actor, exactly. Yeah. So, let me just run through a quick thing about David Fury here. So he, this is the first episode he's written. He freelances for seasons 2 and 3, and then joins the writing staff as a producer in season 4. He is the supervising producer for season 5 of the show, and co-executive producer of season 6. And he's the only non-Joss Whedon writer to have written a season finale, which is the season 6 finale, which has been, not very well liked, given the whole thing revolves around a little yellow crayon.
Anyway, their saves today.
Exactly. He wrote a couple episodes, or quite a few episodes. None that I loved. I'd say he was more of a general writer,
except for this one, obviously.
Oh, of course. He wrote Fear Itself, which is the awesome season 4 episode where Buffy and the gang go to the haunted house with a tiny little demon.
The Irish demon.
Is it Irish?
Yeah, specifically, yeah.
Oh, cool. And he wrote Primeval, which is a season 4 non-finale. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, no really great episodes, to be honest. He was heavily involved in Angel, the TV show, and kind of took executive producer roles along with Marty Noxon in that. And he was nominated for an Oscar for his writing on one Lost episode, which is kind of cool.
An Oscar, an Emmy, do you mean?
Emmy. I said Emmy, I think. Okay, Jill. A couple weeks ago, you were like, "Oh well, you said this," and you corrected me on something, and I was like, "Oh, all right, sorry about that." And I had not fucking said that in the podcast.
Well, I'm just gaslighting you over a very long period of time.
Exactly. He also wrote for seasons 4 and 5 of Fringe, and he wrote a lot of 24. And most recently, he wrote a couple episodes for season 1 of The Tick.
Oh, the most recent revival of The Tick.
Yeah, which we didn't get around to watching, but I will. So the director, David Sennell, he also directed Never Kill a Boy on the First Date and What's My Line Part 2. So we probably already went through all of the shit he did and whatnot. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. That's the writers and directors.
Yeah. Which we need to establish an order in which we want to do this in. Do we want to do the Buffy Ann summary first, or do we want to get? Let
me get through this part, because it's the formal part. It means that I get to be like, tick.
Let your hair down.
Exactly. So, experiments by the school coach turn several of his star swim team into aquatic monsters. The coach tries to kill Buffy when she finds out, and she throws him to his creations. No, she doesn't. Xander goes undercover as a swimmer, but is not affected enough to change. Like, I mean, honestly, the brevity and lacking of that kind of indicates the content of this episode, which I loved. I loved the episode. I think it's so fucking stupid.
There's not a single mention in that summary of Xander's Speedos, and so therefore it's very criminally misobservant. I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, wow.
But that's the key part of this episode for me.
Xander's
Speedos, yeah.
Xander's Speedos, okay. Yeah, we might sound a little bit calmer than the last episode, a little bit less like we want to die. Mm-hmm. I don't think we really properly explained what happened in the last episode, or how that episode came to be.
I think you summarised it was my fault.
It was your fault, ultimately. So what happened was that basically, let's say, about a week ago or so, we recorded the week's episode, just as we normally do. It went really well. It was a good episode. We walked away from it, and I was like, you know what, Joe? I really felt like that went well.
Yeah, that was great. Everyone would have loved it.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to edit it on Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, so basically the day before the episode was due to go live, we had a copy-paste error in our shared drive, which meant that...
Cut-paste error, specifically.
A cut-paste error, which meant that Joel's audio was lost forever. It was fucking horrifying. I did all sorts of I tried to recover all the files using all sorts of weird stuff, but SSDs are shit for that. And
the tremendous horror of it was like, it's one thing just to lose your files, whatever, but it's that sense of, of dawning horror, because what was actually happening was in a complicated and nerdy circumstance, I was remotely viewing the PC where I was copying it to at the same time you were, unbeknownst to me, working on the PC. So you were trying to delete the folder it was going into, and I could see these files. I was refreshing. I was like, where are these files going? Why is the name changing as I'm doing it? I'm sure you were doing something similar where you're like, I'm trying to delete this and it's not working. So
no, actually no, I set it to delete, and basically once I hit delete on it, it was just like, deleting all the files you'd already put in here, and it was taking a while.
Yeah,
but you were actively adding more files to be deleted.
I was basically throwing files into like a boat with a hole in the bottom of it. I'm like, that's very strange.
Yeah. Why did you cut and copy or cut paste it, Joe?
It's quicker.
It's not.
I think it's quicker.
It's longer.
It's quicker, and also I didn't need it on
Joel, no, it takes longer. It literally takes longer to cut paste it than it does to copy paste it.
Well, at the end of the day, who at the end of this exchange do you think comes out as the more likable one? So,
the person who didn't lose 3 hours worth of work for two of us.
The frustrating part about it as well was that we left it later than we would ever usually leave it. So we had we recorded that first precious version of the episode under duress while I wasn't feeling very well. I was like, well, at least we got that in the bag, and then it was all for naught.
Yeah,
but we're better people. We've grown closer. People say that often one of the biggest stresses in a relationship can be the loss of a child, and I feel like we've now passed through that particular barrier. So
that's it. Yeah. Exactly. It was really adding to the stress is that about 2 hours afterwards we sat down and we were like, listen, let's just de-stress. We got some nice food. It was nice, and we put on Location, which is a Channel 4 UK TV show about people buying houses, and I was like feeling fine about it for a little while, and then I got incredibly stressed because it's a TV show. It tries to portray the house purchasing process as incredibly stressful, and I got really stressed and sad.
And you were, I think, potentially on this podcast, were critical of the fact that my initial impulse was to put on an episode from 1998, which have no bearing on modern day. It's like, yeah, Brian, there's a reason why I don't want to watch something that's too like my actual life. I want to see an episode, which I did see, where they talked about Northern Ireland. I was like, properties in Northern Ireland have really skyrocketed. Property prices in Northern Ireland have really skyrocketed since the recent conclusion of the permanent peace process. That's sufficiently removed from my life. I can just enjoy the bag haircuts.
Yeah, Joe also put on Grand Designs, which is another TV show about basically building houses and
turning very middle class.
Yeah,
very middle class.
And basically he put on an episode from 1998 and came to me in the middle of the day and said, Brian, did you know you could build your own house and buy a piece of land for £150,000.
Okay, Brian, you have gotten plenty of mileage out of this story with various relatives and various friends in the last couple of weeks. I said to you, isn't it wild that they were able to do that? No. I did not think I was able to do it.
I don't think you understood that. I don't believe for a second that that's the case, Joe.
Please tweet at Buffy Boys if you're Team Brian or Team Joel.
We'll put up a poll.
Put a poll, yeah.
I'll have red ribbons and you can have blue ribbons. Actually, no, I want blue ribbons.
Ribbons?
Remember that episode of Gilmore Girls where Luke and Lorelai break up. Oh, spoiler! Don't watch. Spoiler alert for Gilmore Girls, in which Luke and Lorelai do get together in the end. Everyone knows that. Anyway, but they break up at one point, and the whole town has to pick sides, and they're distributing ribbons at the at Tyler Dosey's shop to be like, which team are you on? And no one's on Team Luke, basically. I fully
endorse that idea.
And everyone's walking around the town like wearing these ribbons, and while they're like going through the very deep pain of this breakup, they're like, what the fuck? Gilmore Girls is a great way of doing that, where basically when they do very serious emotional stuff, of also like taking the piss out of it and like making light of the character's pain in a really friendly way, a la the episode in which in the newer season, which genuine spoilers here, but Edward Herman, who plays Richard in Gilmore Girls, died in about 2013 2014 or so, which meant that he couldn't be in the reunion, obviously. But how they dealt with this in the TV show was all the characters were very sad that Richard died, but Emily, who is the absolutely insane grandmother of the family,
matriarch of the
matriarch, absolutely, and she is the best character in the TV show, and the only reason to watch that show. There's loads of reasons to watch a show, but like you could just watch it for her. But she orders a painting of Richard, and it arrives, and it's the size of.
It's about 35 feet tall.
Yeah, like, it's the size of an entire wall.
Portrait, yeah.
And she spends like 4 episodes of this TV show refusing to acknowledge the fact that it's way too big.
That it wasn't the size she intended. Yeah,
and it's stubbornly insisting that it's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's just this like really obscure, wonderful reminder of this person.
But then eventually she does break down and say it's a massive mistake. Everyone's like, we know it is. We know it wasn't meant to be this size.
Yeah, but it represents her grief. You know, it's obscure and it's all she has left.
So speaking of grief, go fish.
Yeah. So drugs are bad, apparently. And this is the first episode that wants to tell us.
This episode has a lot of public service announcements to make. So just building on that in-depth summary. There's not much else that I can do to explain it, but essentially the Sunnydale High, for its first time in decades, is close to winning a state sports championship, and we all know how important both sports and territorial identities are. So the coach is using drugs, which we will come to increase his swimmers' performance, and in doing so has the slight side effect of turning them into literally the creature from the Black Lagoon. And there's a extensive murder mystery around who's killing these kids. And at the same time, Buffy is just repeatedly put in situations of being someone attempting to sexually assault her, and everyone making it, all the men and the evil people.
And the Scoobies.
Yeah. Well, the Scoobies are dismissive. Yeah. But everyone else just does make light of it and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot of weird politics to it, but just to finish up in terms of the summary, Xander, the main thing being is Xander goes undercover on the swim team to try and figure out what's happening, and inadvertently puts himself in a situation where he may in fact also become a fish person, and then eventually all the people die or escape, and the fish go to live in the sea. That's kind of the whole episode. Also, Angel is in it for a fraction of a second.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. Yeah. But okay, let's start with one thing. Buffy's journey with rape culture in this episode. Mm-hmm. It's so upsetting. Yeah, it's so odd and so like carelessly written. Yeah. So to start with, she's talking to one of the boys on the swim team at the swim meet, I presume, or it's
a celebration because they've won like the semi-finals.
Yeah, sure, and that's at the beach. Yeah. Important to note, this is one of the only 3 episodes in Buffy where they actually do feature the beach, which apparently is in Sunnydale. And we all get into kind of like water imagery for Buffy because we have hit on that before. But she starts talking to one of the swim team guys, Cam, and the next morning she gets a lift to school with him for some reason. It's kind of confusing. But he basically starts he spends the whole time on their lift in him just talking about the swim team and nothing else. Actually, and
specifically, like, the implication is that he is obsessed with the sea because he's turning into a fish. So he is actually talking about how he wants to fuck the sea, basically.
He really is. And she's like bored out of her mind, and she says, okay, I'm going to leave now because this is not a romantic situation, very explicitly. And he says, are you wearing a bra under that? And she's like, what the fuck? And he then locks her into the car.
This is about 8:30 in the morning as well.
school parking car park, and he kind of basically suggests he's going to sexually assault her. So she bashes his head in.
He says you like it rough, and then like dives for him, and then she basically nearly breaks his wrist and his nose.
Yeah. So well done, Buffy, in that situation.
Yeah.
But then she goes into the nurse's office with him.
Then Principal Snyder sees it happen, and then immediately says, "How dare you hurt one of our athletes?" and gets brought to the nurse's office.
Yeah. And the first thing that Cam says is, "Well, look what she's wearing." You know, she's asking for it essentially, and everyone agrees. And the coach then says, "Yeah, think about what you're wearing and your attitude."
Yeah, this isn't a nightclub.
This isn't a nightclub,
this
exactly.
Isn't a dance club or whatever, yeah.
So that's all horrifying.
Yeah, and Snyder smirks. I remember Snyder being like a weasel, but like Snyder is a real piece of work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's some suggestion. We will sing the praises of the great parts of Buffy. There are parts of this which are not good and which are poorly handled and recklessly handled by the writing, in my opinion.
In the sense that, like, you know, all this playing with like elements of rape culture, like, don't do it unless you're going to say something meaningful about it, or, you know, say, listen, this is a part of women's lives. Yeah. I mean, like, etc. Whereas in this, it's played for laughs.
She's put into a few situations with it, and I think what's epitomized by this reckless attitude, because, you know, there's a way you can handle the fact that Buffy has these still same risks while being the chosen one in a deft way, but the opposite of that is a line that Xander has in this episode when speaking to literally the guy who tried to attack her, who did attack her. I love it when you guys mess with her because she'll beat you up. It's like, no, just because she happens to be super strong doesn't mean it's okay to like put her in those situations and watch her beat people up. Like that's not what we're here to do, you know. But I think there's some implication that the reason why the swim team specifically is like acting weird and aggressive toward her
is due to the steroids.
It's due to steroids, but like specifically the Soviet Union era like mutant drug steroids that they're taking, which make them more sexually aggressive.
Let's get to that in a bit. I think the origin of it.
But my point is, like, I don't think that's excusable or borne out by the narrative, because no one really treats any of it as unusual.
Yeah, true. So yeah, when Buffy is telling the Scoobies about this, like literally Willow, Xander, and Giles, she's telling them about the awful morning she's had, and they basically are all like looking at her blank faced, like, why are you still talking?
Yeah. And
literally the joke there that they're making, the script is making, is that, like, you know, Buffy won't stop talking about how, like, basically she was slut shamed and like someone tried to sexually assault her.
Yeah, and 3 faculty members basically ignored her and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, that's so fucking dark and unnecessary.
Yeah, and the implication is that the text is what they're about to say to Buffy is, something more important happened, someone got murdered. But like, I really thought that I actually think that was out of character.
Yeah.
I think Xander would have been like weirdly possessive.
Sure.
Willow would have been very protective, and Giles would have been, you know,
furious.
Would have walked out of there and gone to like beat the shit out of Snyder or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that was in character voice at all, but it did happen in just the episode, and it wasn't great.
No, and then the last piece of like weird, unnecessary
rape imagery
is that at one point Buffy gets thrown into the sewers the sewers kind of...
Yeah, it has to be access to the sewers because they get out into the sea, so it is the sewers.
But I mean, like, there's kind of like a weird confusion around there, because it could
drainage under the school.
Could be drainage from the swim, from
the swimming pool into,
or it could be swimming pool, like maintenance stuff. I don't know. Anyway, so she gets thrown in there by the coach, who says that the boys don't need to eat, or sorry, they've already eaten the nurse, so they don't need dinner, but they
boys have other needs, i.e. they're going to gang rape you. Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, no, her line in this moment was, great, this is just what my reputation needs, that I did it with the entire swim team. And it's just like, I mean, these lines could not more clearly have been written by like men.
Yeah, because, you know, for better or for worse, and in different ways, like, Buffy, both as a character and as a show, has always handled talking about sex in like less of a crass way.
Yeah,
like Buffy would not say, even as a joke, you know, I dig it with the entire swim team. It's not how it's just none of it rings True, and that can in no way to absolve it and say, "Oh, it didn't happen," but it just like that. It's just poorly handled. And to be honest, like we're going to talk about how we enjoy other aspects of this episode, as a mess and as a weird like horror show. This like diminishes it definitely in my eyes. Yeah,
me too. It's also, I mean, like coming off from that, I mean, elements that are bad about this episode, like it's so clearly a ham-fisted PSA about steroid use, and like that's almost textual. So they call out a couple of things: the aggression that people suggest that comes with steroid use, the smell. I think that's a specific steroid thing. Is apparently people who are on steroids do smell weird, like as in their sweat can like that's one of the stereotypes. So I think basically when the guys get fished, when they go all fishy. There's a note in all situations of
the bad smell.
That there's a really bad smell, and stuff like that. And like I mean, like is steroid usage an epidemic amongst people watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the 90s?
Yeah, they even have that PSA writing where Willow says, "But Giles, if steroids are so bad for you, why do people take them?" Actually, no, I don't think she's speaking. Was she speaking to Giles?
I can't remember this line.
But anyway, okay, that's the point. But it is very like. But G.I. Joe, how can we survive forest fires?
Because like if it was a bit of a piss take where it was like lol, like PSA episode about steroids, I'd be on board. But it doesn't do that. It really does feel like it's trying to warn against steroids, and like literally while doing that, it also acknowledges that people who are involved in like school team culture, i.e., like if you're on a swim team or something like that, they're portrayed as massive jerks. I mean, like at one point. Willow Snyder's talking to Willow and trying to persuade her to increase Gage's, or like falsely increase Gage's
Gage being one of the other swim team members.
Wentworth Miller. On the basis of him
going to fail, basically.
He's going to fail, so he won't be able to swim team anymore. And so like this, and it's just like, yeah, he's a jerk and he's not nice. So I mean, like, are you trying to say to the people who you're portraying as big old bastards that they should also not be using steroids? It's like, hey, cunts, don't use steroids.
Yeah.
Like, is that the Buffy message?
That would be a great like final like that's like Buffy punning as she like stabs the fish or something. It's like, hey, cunt, don't use steroids.
But like, no, she
turns to the camera.
Yeah, exactly. So the hey cunt is when she like punches someone, and then she turns to the camera and says, "Don't use steroids."
Yeah, it's an hog episode, but no. But Buffy as a show has managed to transmute some really interesting things to say about both society issues through this lens, gender and sexuality. This is not an example of that. This is an example, I think, an atypical example of the writing that we try to avoid in Buffy, which is just ham-fisted, really, male perspective, broad strokes, crass writing in respect to those issues. Yeah,
I hate to be this person. And like I hate saying this. This is a thought I'm having. So if I'm being horribly sexist and really awful, then listen, that's what I've done, and I'm sorry. But the fact that like a woman like was on the writing team for this, so it was him. It was
David Fury and his wife Ellen Sampson. Was it?
Sorry, 1 second. Ellen Hampton.
Ellen Hampton.
On the basis of the fact that she didn't write anything else for the show and he wrote an awful lot, and just the tone of it kind of does feel like it was written by him, and potentially they for some tax reasons wanted to split it across the two people, which this actually really reminds me of is Hole, the band. You're like their song Celebrity Skin.
I do know Hole.
Yeah, so it's Courtney Love whose band it is, and it's really weird. So Courtney Love's band, they have this really great album called Live Through This. It was released in 1994 and was released the year after, or maybe the same year, but either the same year of or a couple months after, or the next year of after Kurt Cobain killed himself. And for years, and it's a stunning album. It's stunningly written. It's I think it topped the Paz and Jop poll for the year, which is basically the critics all list all their favorite albums and they aggregate all the scores. So it won that, but people have for years suggested that Courtney Love didn't write those songs, that they were actually Kurt Cobain songs that she stole.
Okay, and
that's like pissed everyone off to oblivion because Courtney Love can fucking write a song. That's just pure base sexism. But this kind of gives me that feeling as well. Of like, did a woman have a pass at this? Did a woman read these jokes and say stuff?
Well, you're positing that she wasn't actually really involved in it.
That would be my like initial thought. Is just that it's just so like properly from such a male gazy perspective.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like, let's paint our colours to the mask. Like, you know,
At the same time, women can write sexist things.
women can write sexist things, and men obviously can write feminist things. But broadly speaking, culturally and societally, there is a thing called the male gaze. It's incredibly pervasive in all of our literature and media.
Absolutely.
And with absence of better information based on best judgment, I think you can look at something and say, this feels like a man wrote it. You know? And
Yeah. Anyway, listen, if Ellen Hampton, if you're listening,
come on the show.
I'm sure you are, and you actually wrote tons of this, and I'm writing or disregarding your contribution on the basis of sexism. I genuinely am sorry.
Absolutely, Ellen. If you wrote a lot of the bad parts of this episode, and we're not giving you sufficient credit for that, we're sorry. Okay, let's talk about some of the good things in this episode.
Yeah, all the homoeroticism mean, or
I do want to talk about the homoeroticism, but I also want to say that Xander's many prejudices also extend to now shaming men who wax parts of their body.
Yeah.
Because he slags one of the swim team members who waxes his back. It's like, does he wax his back? Okay, for one thing, if he's doing that himself, that's quite difficult to do.
That's really impressive, yeah.
It's really impressive and incredibly painful. So I don't appreciate that. But then we see Xander in the nip, like, he is like fairly hairless himself, you know?
Yeah, he is.
I enjoy Willow in this episode immensely. She is tremendously jubilant energy. When they talk about, I love when they have to build up the high school setting and they introduce, you know, as if we've forgotten. It's like, oh yeah, the swim team, Cam, Engage, and Dodge, and also, you know, we're really into the sporks and the Razorbacks, as if this was all ongoing. When like, you know. So Cam, who's the first person who initially talks to Buffy extensively about his girlfriend, the Sea, and then tries to attack her, is introduced as an old high school friend of hers. Sure. Like, oh, I just want to sit and talk to Buffy Summers, yeah. But Willow talks about, the other thing that Buffy, that Sunnydale succeeds in is the high mortality rate. Yeah, which I just enjoyed.
You're actually looking down when this happened, which is such a shame. But after she says that, Cordelia chuckles at Willow's joke. She's like, lol, that's hilarious. That's charming, yeah. And it was really lovely because just I think it was more Charisma Carpenter having a nice like laugh at the joke. And I was happy with it.
A bit later in the episode where Buffy says that they have to find the fish people and from whence they came, and she says from whence they came, I'm starting to spend too much time around you, Giles. And Giles also just smiles like in a way that's like, I just enjoy your company. Like it's very nice.
It is nice. So yes, Xander is in the nip and he's sleek and smooth and ready to swim through the.
It's just very high school show because they have a moment where he comes out and, you know, Cordelia's like, oh, who's this beefcake? And the camera starts at his feet as if she was like, someone's walked into the room. I was like, well, I need to identify from the bottom up first. But then they
well, you know, that's how like all like, I mean, this happens to Cordelia, Willow, and Buffy. They all experience this. But you know how that works is that like when someone walks into the room, you look at their feet and you scan upwards past their crotch and then eventually land in their face like, oh, what a surprise, I wouldn't have recognized you by your crotch.
I feel like this kind of spatial awareness explains why she drives the way she does. Starting at the bottom of the road and looking up. But,
that is how you're supposed to do it, Joel.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like vertically as opposed to anyway.
Okay.
But it's very fast time at Ridgemont High. It's very 80s high school.
Sure.
Movie. They played the Bounce Chicka Wow Wow music, you know, and I think it's like something akin to a record scratch when she realizes it's Xander.
Yeah.
But you know, the Willow, Buffy, and Cordelia are all very horny for Xander. Like that's the point of the scene.
Yeah.
At one point, Xander's
it's literally the like, you know, oh, I'm a real nerd, but wait till you see me with my clothes off.
Yeah, and like he's talking about that he'll be able to keep an eye on the boys when they're not there, and Willow's like, oh, it's like, oh, do you mean when you're nude? I mean changing. It's just.
I was really glad that they didn't give Willow more strife in this episode, though.
Yeah,
as in like
she's gone over it. Like
she has gotten over it, which is such a relief.
And they did acknowledge something that, you know, is rarely acknowledged anymore. Is that when you're wearing speedos or swim gear like that, you are naked. Yeah, like we act like people are naked, but they're just naked, but in a socially acceptable way.
It's so true.
So naked.
Yeah, that was actually a nice little bit of acting by Nicholas Brendan. Like he does the laughs good in that scene where he's trying to hide his shame by covering himself up with a floating device. And
he's quite a funny character when he's not being funny at someone else's expense. Do you know what I mean? Like he can actually do comedy quite well. And
he does.
His like hapless, like so many of them are so terrible at infiltration. He haplessly infiltrates things. He's like, so guys,
Cordelia is very good at it.
Where are we getting the steroids from? And Buffy in this episode as well is meant to be following Wentworth Miller, and Giles specifically says to do so discreetly, and he catches her immediately, and she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to tell you fish people are trying to kill you. Like, she can't lie. She actually can't lie.
Yeah.
Actually, just before I get off it, in the Adventure Zone, which is a different podcast, which is currently doing a Buffy-inspired setting, they chose one that congenitally cannot lie.
Oh, really?
Is terrible at lying. Like, not like mystically, it's just personally terrible liar.
Which character?
Justin's character.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But I wonder if that's like a Buffy thing, or also just like that the protagonists are often like not... Like, Buffy's not a very good liar. She always does that thing where she's like, oh, yeah, totally. I was just... And then she just gives up and then says, here's the truth.
Or like, talking to her mother at her breakfast table being like, sorry, Mum, I'm so tired from slaying slaying the SAT prep.
Another PSA turns to the camera. Yeah.
But okay, so the homoeroticism in this episode,
yes,
it's there, and this has actually been one of the episodes that people have pointed to as being one of the potential points of building for Xander as gay character, because as we've mentioned a couple of times, Joss Whedon originally, when writing Buffy, wasn't sure which of Xander or Willow he was going to make gay. So he laid foundations for both. So this was one of the episodes where this was supposed to be laid on thick. One
of the saving graces, actually, of the episode from all the other, like, badly handled things is they don't make any obvious gay jokes.
Yeah, sure.
Any kind of, soap dropping, backslapping kind of
stuff.
Yeah,
the thing that gets close is that Xander says, and, like, with a touch of irony, but also maybe not, like, that he got to be sitting around sweaty in a sauna with a bunch of sweaty men kind of thing. And that's the line, I
don't see the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's lots of men checking each other's bodies. There's lots of men just like sitting around with each other in the steam room, soaking up the steams and stuff. And I what's a weird element of the homoeroticism in this episode is that Wentworth Miller can't play straight. I really think, and he has kind of disappeared from the public eye recently.
So just explain for the uninitiated, Wentworth Miller
is the main character from Prison Break,
who has an early cameo in this episode.
He sure does. This is his first on-screen credit as an actor. Yeah. This is the first thing he ever did.
And he relatively recently came out as...
like maybe 2009, 2010 or so.
Yeah, well, after he garnered some fame, he
came out as a fish.
A mid-career. Well done.
Thanks. Yeah, he came out as gay. It was really funny because I remember for years I used to read these really awful, trashy blogs about like gay gossip when I was in my teenage years. And one of the things that they would do is they would speculate extensively about like actors' sexuality, which is so awful, and I really shouldn't have been reading those blogs. But
you want to know.
Exactly. And on the basis of who was kind of hanging out with who and who would be seen in LA walking around getting coffee on a Saturday morning, they would speculate about them. And Wentworth Miller was the subject of rumors for years and years before he came out. But yeah, I mean, like the character, so Gage, in the first scene where he's on the beach, he arrives, he's wearing we'll get into the fashion of it later. He's wearing something ridiculous. But the dude just looks like fucking Sinead O'Connor. Like, he's a very attractive man, but like the way he cuts his hair, because he wears a very, very tight crop, he literally looks like Sinead O'Connor in this episode.
He does specifically, and that's not like a jab at Sinead. Yeah. He just looks like Sinead O'Connor in this episode.
He really does. And he, at a couple of various points, I think you have to say it's not a jab at him. Listen, both very attractive people, specifically Sinead O'Connor when she was doing her Nothing Compares to You kind of era, thing. Anyway, He tries to do a couple of the, oh, hey, dude, what are you doing, dude, over here? Like, dude, lines.
I think he does say bro a lot specifically.
He does, and it just comes across as like, this guy does not know how to do a speak, which is quite funny. So yeah.
Just as an aside, I had a suboptimal haircut experience during the week. And discovered, and I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
I met a barber who I had a suboptimal interaction with, but one of the things that put me off him was he kept referring to me as bro.
Oh no!
Specifically kept referring to me as bro, and I was like, everything else here has not gone well. You've stolen my beard, and also you keep calling me bro, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah, not nice. But yeah, going on from that, there's just a huge amount of toxic masculinity in this episode generally. So there's lots of all the rape culture issues, a very primary example of toxic masculinity, and then from there's also a couple of things. Like, I mean, there's the bullying culture that exists. So
with
Jonathan gets extensively bullied in this episode. He gets dunked into a bunch of ice water. And I think that's, obviously like laying the foundations for what's going to happen later on in Jonathan's storyline.
Yeah.
Which is where he tries to kill himself in season 3.
Yeah, and specifically, he's the second person, or at least the second person, maybe more so. But he has a line with Buffy where Buffy saves him from being dunked.
That was that was the next thing I was going to say. He is actually the second person. The first person was Xander.
Xander, yeah.
So yeah, in phases when Larry is bullying Xander, Buffy comes and saves him, and Xander gives out to him for having saved. Gives out to her for having saved him.
Yeah.
And Jonathan does the same thing in this episode. Jonathan, who isn't gay, it turns out, right? Or
the character.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's ever. I think they question it, but no, he's not gay.
Oh, are you sure? Well, like Andrew definitely did. I think it suggests at some point that they had some kind of romantic thing going on. But yeah, no, like that. It's an important like note to hit in this episode is that the toxic masculinity and the culture surrounding it doesn't just affect the kind of the bro-ish kind of characters. It's the kind of the nice guys and TM and the kind of the downtrodden nerds who going to want to revolt. It's all part of the same kind of problem.
Yeah, and it's very much, I suppose, just the toxic masculinity isn't like the unvarnished assumption that all men are the problem, but just that it is a social structure which affects men and which men also contribute to, and affects people who aren't men to a much more disproportionate amount. But like everyone has an aspect of it here, like, or a lot of people are like Principal Snyder, which is such an unvarnished like villain in terms of actively promoting toxic masculinity if he might win a title for the school. The coach is just bonkers, is just completely unhinged in his various actions, and anytime anyone tries to speak to him, just like 3 or 4 people in succession, he's like, throw them in the hole. Throw them in the hole. He's clearly so one of the plot points is that he's been working with the school nurse who's aware of this, and she comes and she addresses him by his first name. His name's Carl Marin, addresses him as Carl, and just presumably working with her for a number of years, and definitely a lot on this particular plot. And then within one conversation, throws her in the hole. Yeah,
she's like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't do this." And he's like, "Into the hole you go."
Yeah, basically,
you're feeding the boys. Marin meaning marine or being close to marlin? Do you think?
Just general fishy
stuff,
implications. Yeah.
So. Great in a great way. What's his explanation there, Joel, for the steroids that he's using?
I need to read this. I actually paused to get this down.
It was a great moment. It was maybe the best moment of the episode, and actually, it was preceded very closely by the boys at one point trying to escape, 2 of the fish boys trying to escape, and doing so by sliding along their bellies on the floor into a sewer system. And it's just like, why?
Like the last thing you want to do in a change room in a swimming pool is get down on your belly.
Disgusting.
But Buffy confronts.
They're going to get verrucas.
Remember those swim socks you used to have to wear? You ever wear those?
I never wore those. No.
Yeah. Buffy confronts the coach, the same coach who, in a very short period of time has like told her to stop dressing like a slut, has
fed the boys this nurse.
Yeah, has expressed a really obviously fake remorse because she's interrogated him before, and he's like, "God, I don't know how this could have happened." She asks him again, and she's like, "Tell me the actual truth." He's like, "Okay, I will," with no prompting, and says, "After the fall of the Soviet Union, documents came to light detailing experiments on fish DNA they used with their Olympic swimmers. They were never successful. I, however, have solved the problem." It's like, okay. So again, we're implying that technically, obviously exacerbated by Hellmouth energy, but this is not a supernatural thing that has happened.
Yeah.
This is just the Cold War.
I mean, like, there's something you can do with steroids whereby if you put a certain chemical in boys for long enough.
Certain boys.
In boys for long enough, that a sea creature will grow under their skin and rip open.
And we haven't really highlighted great special effects in this episode. Great gory stuff happens because I actually think it's quite a good episode as a red herring murder mystery.
Sure,
because there's a couple of turns where it's not so obvious what's actually happening. They do initially. You see a shot of
you see like a shot of the boys walking along. They smell something. They start off camera. They start screaming, and when they're found, it's just their skin has been left over, and a scary monster is walking away, i.e. the scary monster has skinned them and eaten them.
Yeah, and they do imply that someone is skinning and eating the boys, but what's obviously happening is the boys are bursting out of their own skin. That's convincingly carried by the evidence they have for a while. Oftentimes we see the evidence they have clearly points out what's actually happening, and then you have, for a while, they think the nurse is doing it based on evidence, all this kind of stuff. So it's actually a decent twist, and when it comes out, is you see Wentworth Miller, as he starts changing, tears open his skin, and we see everything. Digs his finger into his skin, tears it off, and then his hand, I'm sure you'll see this in the preview images I put up for this episode, his fish hand bursts out of his skin, and he looks like horrified. It's very, I think it's actually quite decently done, and the skin is always steaming when they get out of
gross. Apparently that was Wentworth Miller. He spent 3 hours getting this prosthetic put on, and towards the end they're like, okay, so make sure to do this right the first time, because we can only do this once. And he was fucking terrified.
Yeah, you would be.
Like, this is his first action gig of all time. So the twist is actually quite good, and it's also just like a nice, as Monsters of the Week go, it's a nice classic 50s callback to the creature from the Blue Lagoon. That was a joke, because that's the joke. That's what Cordelia says, Joel.
Sure.
He's giving me judging eyes over there. I know it's the Black Lagoon.
Good.
So, classic horror reference, which I'll always appreciate. Though I've never seen Creature of the Black Lagoon. From the Black Lagoon.
I think they replicate quite well, because they are very much, they're catfishy type monsters in this, but it's fairly straightforward. It's just something in a Black Lagoon that's eating people and kidnapping people, but yeah, so it's good from that point of view. It is a solid Monster Week episode. It's very joyful and joyous in how it engages with it. It has comedy, a scene with Cordelia which we'll save and we'll come to in a moment, but otherwise Willow gets into a trip of interrogating people, and
crack him like an egg.
Interrogates Jonathan in the computer science room. And the blinds in the computer science room have been conveniently pulled to make them look visually like a private detective's office, or like a good cop, bad cop kind of situation.
I will watch that TV show, Willow the Private Detective.
She interrogates the nurse.
Willow Investigations.
She goes and interrogates fucking everyone.
Yeah, she's great.
But she just takes such like joy in doing it as well.
This episode, obviously, very light, critical analysis wise. Very few references to it anywhere I could find. Mark Fields does suggest, while acknowledging that he doesn't have much of an answer for why this episode might exist, does suggest that potentially the sea might represent the unconscious, and a return to a kind of like a primordial motherly kind of thing, which represents Buffy's current state of needing healing and being fractured, and also kind of the imagery of the boys is like the kind of the monster that exists within men that is ready to like burst out, and etc. Literally in this instance,
with or without, to some extent, their conscious engagement, which I think is probably a decent note.
Sure. What I will say though is that yes, this is one of the 3 episodes where the sea is featured. One of the other ones is Anne, the season 3 opener, and at another point Buffy and Angel stand at the sea and look out together. So from my perspective, the sea and water imagery we talked about in another episode in Surprise Innocence. It's often related to change, to sexuality, to healing, to baptism, all these things. So in this instance, I would see it as a kind of like a healing metaphor, and a metaphor of kind of like just kind of like an endlessness and an impossibility,
things that are missable and dissolution and that kind of stuff.
Sure. And Buffy looking out into the sea and missing Angel, essentially, it's an appropriate image.
Yeah, of course, that beautiful image being shattered by just having 3 extras in fish people costumes loping up and down over the waves.
Oh my god, that is the worst shot in all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Joel. Like,
it's also because it's in full brightness as well.
Yeah, so the end of the episode is the three fish monsters just like repeatedly jumping up and down in the water while swimming out to sea. It is
not swimming, jumping up and down.
It's bizarre, and those poor men or people in those awful in those costumes, like, what the fuck?
The true MVPs.
Must have been awful. Let's our final note is the Cordelia
scene.
Yeah,
one of my favorite scenes in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because just between the bookwall plot in this episode, the sexy Xander, Cordelia just giving ham for everything. Cordelia's obsessed with, in this episode, dating someone on the swim team or on any school sports team, and talks about how, the idea that, everyone should be treated fairly and all that is just propaganda for the ugly and the less deserving. But at one point she goes to the swimming pool with Xander. Xander goes to investigate something off screen. A fish man comes in, jumps in and starts swimming lengths in the pool, and she assumes this is Xander and gives him a beautiful eulogy about how she will always still love him, and how he was actually really hot in those Speedos, and how they can still date if he wants to. He may want to go and meet other fish. but she'll buy him some bath toys, whatever he needs for quality of life, and the swelling music. And then Alexander's standing beside her, being like, "That's not me, that's a fish man." And the fish man goes, "Blah," attacks them. It gets senseless and wonderful, and such a
Chris McGovern does an amazing job.
Yeah,
with it, yeah.
By name and by nature, it's very, very good.
She it's really good. And it's so upsetting that Guillermo del Toro just stole an entire movie from this scene.
Maybe that's why you were talking about Oscars at the start of this.
Yeah, maybe. The Shape of Water was bad. I'm just going to put it out.
It wasn't enjoyable. I didn't enjoy it.
Like it. Okay.
I'm kind of mean to gays for no real reason.
Yeah, it really was. Death count in this episode.
Yeah, so the only people who actually die, although transformation is a kind of death.
No, it's not.
So the only people who actually die in this episode are Carol Marin, who's the coach, Coach Marin, and Nurse Greenlee, both of whom are... Well, we assume the coach dies.
Oh, yeah, he does.
It's implied that he is sexually savaged by his fish team.
It really is.
Which is a low point in Buffy's history, I think.
Yeah. Okay, here's a few Buffy bits for you. One of the people who delivers all this news to Xander about the steroids, who's actually uncredited in the sauna or steam room, is Shane West, who was in Eeyore for years.
You recognised him?
Yeah, no, I would have known him from that. And he was in A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore, or was it Mandy Moore? I think it was Mandy Moore. Anyway, which is one of those movies that people love to watch and cry to, basically, because there's cancer involved. So he makes an uncredited appearance. Apparently, the coach at one point was hit on the head during the filming of this by an errant piece of pipe.
Is that why he delivers all his lines like that?
Yeah, and Sarah Michelle Gellar ate into the crew over it. Apparently, she really gave everyone a big lecture on it. Yeah, so there you go. It's the last appearance of the opening prologue. So into each generation, and Slayer's
born. Yeah.
Exactly. And this
people aren't born a Slayer into each generation.
Good point. And this is 2 more faculty deaths. So that's number 5 and 6, I think. So
it's almost like it's a recurring problem.
Yeah.
That's probably why they find it hard to find a computer science teacher this late into term.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have any more bits for me, Joe?
Yeah, I do. So we mentioned briefly earlier that Angel is in this episode. With an odd plot interjection. So he comes up upon Wentworth Miller and says, "Oh, you must be with that psycho bitch Buffy, etc. You were talking to her. I'm going to turn you into a vampire to help me get back at her." And then this gives us the clue where he bikes into Wentworth Miller and spits out his blood because it's full of steroids, and just to make it perfectly clear, does it 6 more times.
It was kind of homoerotic.
But it's an odd one, because what was Angel's plan there?
Yeah, I have no idea. It was basically it was shoehorned in, and apparently this episode was planned in much earlier in the season before the Angelus turn. So Angelus turn. So at this point, it's just like an awkward shoehorning in of a vampire. I
also think potentially that's why Oz has been absent for a few episodes, given that they had expected him to die by this point.
Oh, that's a good point.
Could potentially be why he's not bet into these scripts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would say it's weird for a school to have a steam room.
It is.
Starting off with,
did yours have one?
My school didn't even have a steam room.
Wow.
Xander screams like a very high pitched bird-like creature of some sort, and is generally quite lily-livered during this episode. There's a lot of Wentworth Miller is playing a classic Game Boy at one point, and also doing solitaire in computer class while they program their computer to compile a single pie chart.
Pie charts are hard. There's one really funny joke I thought in the episode, which is where Willow finds out that Jonathan peed in the pool to get back at all the bullies. And Willow's breaking this news to Buffy and Cordelia, and they're like, "Yeah, so he peed in the pool," and they're like, "That's okay." And they look at Xander, and he dives into the pool, and they're like,
belly flops into piss. That's what I have written here.
Yeah, and it was a very funny joke.
I think when Buffy was trying to do her private detective thing on Fallen Gauge, I think she was wearing that same raincoat that she's wearing in Bewitched Bothers.
Oh yeah,
it looked like it.
Fashion notes, okay. The first guy who turns into a fish boy, whose name Dodd. He has a fish tattoo on his arm, and it feels like that's going to be like a continuing thing. Yeah. And it looks like the tattoos from The Simpsons.
Yeah, the fighting fish, the fighting World War II fish.
Yeah, I can't remember
the one that Grandpa's big
yeah. But it doesn't turn out to be a thing. But he's also wearing a shirt with fish on it, because it could not be.
He's on the swim team.
Yeah, Wentworth Miller is wearing the worst jumper I've ever seen in my fucking life. It is the highest necked turtleneck jumper I've ever seen, and it has a weird black stripe down it that made me think that he was wearing a waistcoat on top of his turtleneck jumper for a second. It was horrifying. At another point, Xander is wearing the baggiest pants I've ever seen in my life.
So he can fit all those speedos under there. I think also that it was an odd note that all the people on the team knew they were taking drugs. Like, for all the sleuthing they did, at the end they were just like, oh, we all know there's drugs in this team.
Yeah.
It was just kind of there. A couple of great lines in this as well.
Okay.
So Buffy says, I'm out here breaking my nails, battling the forces of evil, where everyone else is getting a pass. At one point, Jaws locks everyone, all the remaining swim boys, in the book cage, and says, stay calm, chops. We'll hopefully we'll find a solution, a cure, and if we don't, and then just walks away. But then suggests we need to find the drugs so the hospital's toxicology lab can develop a cure. And I was like, I'm not sure if the 1950s era mental asylum that we've seen Sunnydale General to be is really equipped for that kind of CDC nonsense.
Yeah, it really is. All right, you happy to do a rating, Joe?
I am happy. I'm very happy to hear your rating. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to give this episode 5.8 tartar sauces out of 10.
Very good. Tell me why you want to give 5.8 tartar sauces.
Sure. So I think it was a fun episode. It really was. Like, the characters, the actors are all on point in terms of their humor and their delivery and stuff. And it's it's a bit of fluff in some ways. Heavily problematized by the use of sexual assault as a plot note for absolutely no fucking reason. It was
and a punchline.
Yeah. So it was a fun episode, but stupid and also inappropriate.
Yeah. I would give it 6.3 mutated catfish whiskers.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, similar notes. I actually think I do stand over that as a Monster Week murder mystery. Actually, it's quite a strong structure to it. I think the mystery holds for quite a long period of time. It's quite funny.
Sure.
And Buffy is underestimated for how funny it is.
I would watch this episode before Bad Eggs again.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it has just it uses all the available tools in its box to great effect. I think the elements, as you said, which are problematic, are very problematic and are just sloppy. From the
bygone era.
A bygone era, the 1990s starting screenwriter's tool of easy cliches, and they do, to be honest, the more we perpetuate these cliches and these stereotypes, does damage every time we see it on TV and normalizes it. So I think it's diminished by that, but otherwise an enjoyable episode. Yeah,
sure. Okay, what's our episode next week, Joel?
Next week we are starting part 1 of 2 of Becoming, which is the season 2 finale.
Excited!
It's gonna be a big one.
Yeah, it really is. I'm excited. Becoming part 2 is just like, it's like, for a lot of people, the best episode of the TV show.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm gonna cry.
I might give it an unusually high rating of 8+.
We're gonna do 2 episodes separately, right?
Oh yeah. Well,
great.
they're 2 episodes.
That's what we've always done. Great. Yeah. Love it. Okay.
Not that Quentin Tarantino thing. I pretend 2 separate episodes are 1 episode.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, do you wanna take us out there, Joel?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We really appreciate your continued engagement. We enjoy doing it, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. So please follow us on Twitter and tell your friends about it. Tell your family. Tell your Soviet Union era swim coach. And keep on trucking. And we will see you. We will see you all next week for Becoming. Thank you for listening to Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys. Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys.
Boys.
Bye.
Bye. See you.